Do you believe some places should never be entered, no matter what? Because what you're about to see are the top 5 most disturbing encounters ever recorded. These are not just horror stories. These are real accounts from people who swear they never slept the same again. If you're sensitive to disturbing content, you might want to stop now. But if you stay, you'll understand why these moments still haunt them. I never believed a place could be hungry. Not until I spent 3 nights in Black Hollow. Shh. Years later, I still wake up when rain taps against a window, convinced I've heard it again. That scratching. Slow, patient, deliberate. Not the sound of something trying to get in. The sound of something reminding you it never left. My name is Ethan. And before I tell you what happened, I need you to promise me something. If you're ever driving through the mountains after midnight and you see a weather-beaten sign pointing toward a town called Black Hollow, keep driving. Don't slow down. Don't turn your head. Don't even glance down that road. Because Black Hollow isn't abandoned. It's waiting. And once it notices you, it doesn't forget. It started during the autumn of 2018. I was 27, broke and desperate. The company I worked for had folded without warning. My savings were disappearing faster than I could replace them. And after months of job hunting, I finally accepted a temporary position documenting old properties that were scheduled for demolition. It wasn't glamorous. Most of the time, I drove to forgotten places, photographed buildings, filled out paperwork, and left. Easy money. Or so I thought. The assignment that changed everything came in an email with only 3 words in the subject line. Black Hollow Project. The attached files were strange. No photographs. No property history. No maps. Just coordinates and a note. Complete survey within 3 days. Do not remain after dark. I laughed when I read that. At the time, it sounded like somebody trying too hard to be mysterious. I wish I'd listened. The drive took nearly 7 hours. The farther I traveled into the mountains, the fewer signs of civilization I saw. Gas stations disappeared. Cell service vanished. The road narrowed until it became little more than cracked asphalt, weaving through endless forests. The trees looked wrong. That's the first thing I remember. Not dead. Not diseased. Just wrong. Their trunks twisted in unnatural directions. Branches bent downward as if they were reaching toward the earth. Every few miles, I caught myself checking the rearview mirror. Not because I thought something was there, because I kept feeling like something should be. Around sunset, I finally saw the sign. Black Hollow population, 84. The numbers had been crossed out. Underneath, someone had painted another message. Don't count them. I rolled my eyes. Tourist prank. Local joke. Nothing more. I turned onto the road. The forest swallowed me. The temperature seemed to drop the moment my tires left the highway. The trees crowded closer on both sides, hemming in the road until my headlights bounced off bark and tangled branches. The hum of my engine sounded unnaturally loud, as if the woods were listening. 5 minutes later, I entered the town, and immediately knew something was wrong. Not abandoned, not exactly. The houses were standing. Cars sat in driveways. Lights glowed behind curtains. But there were no people, no children, no dogs, no movement, nothing. The entire town looked like everyone had gone inside at the exact same moment. The silence was unbearable. Most towns have sounds. Wind, traffic, birds, something. Black Hollow had none. Even the wind seemed afraid to move there. The air felt cold and stale against my skin, carrying the faint smell of wet wood and old earth. My footsteps echoed when I got out of the car. the sound traveling farther than it should have through the empty streets. Every dark window felt occupied. Every porch seemed to be watching. I checked into the only motel, an aging two-story building with peeling paint and yellowed windows. Its flickering vacancy sign buzzed weakly in the gathering dark. The parking lot was nearly empty, and the chill there felt sharper somehow, as though the building itself radiated cold. When I stepped inside, the stale air smelled of mildew, dust, and something faintly. The woman behind the counter never smiled, never introduced herself, never even looked directly at me. She slid a key across the desk. Room 7. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Lock the door before midnight," I chuckled. "Why?" Her eyes slowly lifted to meet mine. For the first time, I noticed how exhausted she looked. Not tired, terrified. The kind of terrified that settles into a person's bones. Then she whispered, "Because it learns your face." Every instinct told me to ask what she meant. Instead, I laughed again. People do that when they're nervous. They laugh. Even when they shouldn't. Especially when they shouldn't. I carried my bags upstairs. The hallway groaned beneath each step. Somewhere deeper in the motel, pipes rattled once and then fell silent. The air grew colder as I climbed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the narrow corridor stretched farther behind me than it should have. Room 7 overlooked the forest. Darkness was already swallowing the trees. The sun vanished completely within minutes, and that's when I noticed something. There were no streetlights. The town simply disappeared into blackness, as if the night itself had swallowed it. Around 11:30, I sat on the bed reviewing documents. The motel creaked occasionally. Old buildings do that. I didn't think much of it. Then midnight arrived, and every sound stopped. Not faded. Stopped. The silence hit so suddenly that I looked up from my laptop. No insects, no wind, no distant noises, nothing. The world outside had become silent. My skin prickled. That's when I heard the first scratch. Scrape. Soft, barely audible, coming from beneath the floor. I froze. Another scratch followed. Closer, longer, slowly moving underneath my room. Something was crawling down there. I stood up. The scratching stopped. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then a voice emerged from beneath the floorboards. A voice I hadn't heard in 12 years. My father's voice. The exact voice. The exact tone. The exact way he used to say my name. "Ethan?" My blood turned to ice, because my father had been buried in a cemetery in Ohio since 2006. And whatever was under room 7 was about to prove that death meant absolutely nothing in Black Hollow.
Have you ever heard your name whispered when nobody was there? Not imagined it, not mistaken a sound, actually heard it. Because when I was 14, something under my bedroom floor knew my name, and every night it got a little closer. My parents bought the house during the summer of 2008. It stood alone at the edge of a small town, surrounded by dead pine trees that never seemed to move, even when the wind blew. The place was cheap, too cheap, but my father didn't care. "It just needs a little work," he said. Those words would become the biggest lie he ever told. The first few weeks felt normal. We unpacked, painted walls, set up furniture. My room was on the second floor, directly above the old living room. The floorboards creaked constantly. At first, I thought it was just the house settling. Then the noises started happening at night. 3 knocks every single night, always at exactly 2. 17 a.m. Knock, 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 directly beneath my bed. The first few times I ignored it. Old houses make sounds, everyone knows that. But after 2 weeks, curiosity got the better of me. I stayed awake, watching the clock, waiting. The room was completely silent. 216, nothing. 217, knock, knock, knock. The sound came from directly underneath me, not from a wall, not from downstairs, from beneath the floor, as though someone was trapped under the wood. Trying to get out, I jumped out of bed and pressed my ear against the floor. Nothing. The knocking stopped immediately. The next morning, I told my father. He laughed. Probably pipes. There were no pipes under my room. I knew that because I'd seen the house plans. Still, nobody believed me, so I stopped mentioning it. But the knocking continued every night, always at 2:17, always 3 knocks. And then came the whispering. It started quietly, barely audible. I woke one night and heard something beneath me, a voice muffled, as though it was speaking through layers of dirt. At first, I couldn't understand the words. Then it became clearer. Daniel. I froze. That was my name. The voice sounded old, dry, like someone whose throat had been filled with dust. Daniel. The whisper came from directly beneath my bed. I pulled the blanket over my head and stayed there until sunrise. The next night, the voice returned. This time it said, Daniel, help me. My stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed at me not to answer, so I didn't. The whisper continued for almost an hour, repeating the same sentence over and over. Help me! Then suddenly it changed. The voice stopped sounding weak, stopped sounding afraid, and asked a question. Why won't you answer me? I ran from my room and slept on the couch downstairs. The next morning, I noticed something strange. The floor beneath my bed had changed. 3 floorboards were darker than the rest, as though they had been soaked in water. Or something worse, I touched them. The wood felt damp, cold, almost alive. That night, I moved my bed across the room. I thought distance might help. It didn't. At 2:17, the knocking came again. Only this time it wasn't beneath the bed, it was beneath me. Somehow the sound followed, as though whatever was underneath knew exactly where I was. Weeks passed. I barely slept. Dark circles formed under my eyes. My grades dropped. My parents became concerned. But whenever they checked my room, everything seemed normal. No voices, no knocking, nothing. Whatever lived beneath the floor only appeared when I was alone. Then one night it said something that changed everything. Daniel, I found your mother. My blood turned to ice. The voice began laughing, a horrible wet laugh. She's sleeping downstairs. I ran to my parents' room immediately. They were asleep, safe. But when I returned to my room, the laughter continued, directly beneath the floorboards. Waiting, listening. I decided to investigate, a terrible decision. But fear eventually turns into curiosity, and curiosity can be deadly. The next afternoon, while my parents were out, I grabbed a crowbar. I went to the dark floorboards and pried one loose. The wood snapped upward. A foul smell exploded into the room. Rotting earth, mold, something older, something dead. Beneath the floor wasn't insulation. It wasn't pipes. It was empty space, a hidden cavity, large enough for a person to crawl through. I shined a flashlight inside. At first, I saw nothing, just dirt. Then the beam moved and illuminated a handprint, pressed into the soil, fresh. My heart pounded. Someone had been down there recently. I looked closer. There were dozens of handprints, hundreds, covering every surface as though countless people had clawed at the earth, trying to escape. Then my flashlight landed on something else. A face. I screamed and fell backward, but the face didn't move because it wasn't alive. It was a photograph, half buried in dirt. I reached inside and pulled it out. The picture showed a family standing in front of the house. A mother, a father, a young boy. Written on the back were 3 words, still underneath us. That night, I didn't sleep.
Last night,
at 2:17,
my doorbell rang at exactly 3:13 a.m.,
dozens,
but my house
hundreds,
doesn't have a doorbell.
from every direction beneath the floor. The entire room vibrated. The whispers returned too, except it wasn't one voice anymore. It was many, men, women, children, all speaking at once, all saying my name. The sound was unbearable. Then suddenly everything stopped. A single voice emerged, deep, ancient, patient. "We know you opened it." The closet door slammed shut. The window shattered, and something struck the underside of the floor with enough force to lift the wood. For one horrifying second, I saw fingers pushing upward through the cracks. Human fingers, pale and filthy, trying to force their way inside. The next morning, I showed my parents the hidden cavity, but it was gone. The hole had vanished. The floorboards were back in place, perfectly intact, as though nothing had happened. My parents thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I did too, until I found the newspaper. Hidden inside the attic was a stack of old newspapers. One article caught my attention. The headline read, "Family missing after strange complaints." The address listed beneath the article was ours. The family in the photograph had disappeared in 1974. No bodies were ever found. Then another article, and another. Different years, different families. Same house, same disappearance. A total of 17 people had vanished there over the decades. No explanation, no survivors, until me. That night I packed a bag. I intended to leave, to spend the night elsewhere, anywhere else. At 2:10 a.m. I walked toward my bedroom door and found it locked. From the outside, I was trapped. Then came the knocking. Not beneath me this time, inside the walls. Every wall, thousands of impacts, like a crowd pounding from within the house itself. The wallpaper began bulging outward, shapes pressed against it, human faces, dozens of them, screaming silently, trying to break through. The voice returned, closer than ever, right behind me. "Look under the bed." I refused. "Look under the bed." The command became louder, angrier. "Look under the bed." Against my better judgment, I did, and I saw darkness. Not ordinary darkness, a hole, an impossible hole, far deeper than the space beneath the bed should allow. Something moved inside it, a figure crawling upward. Slowly, its limbs bent the wrong way. Its skin hung in strips. Its eyes were completely black. But the worst part wasn't its appearance. It had my face, and I backed away. The creature smiled and spoke using my voice. "We've been waiting." Then it crawled out. I don't remember much after that, only running, screaming, falling down the stairs, the front door opening, cold air hitting my face, then darkness. I woke up in a hospital. 3 days had passed. My parents said they found me unconscious on the lawn. The doctors blamed exhaustion, stress, sleep deprivation. Nobody believed my story. Eventually, we moved away. The house was demolished a year later, bulldozed completely. Every board, every wall, every foundation stone, gone. But here's the part that still terrifies me. Last year I went back. The property is empty now. Nothing remains, just dirt, grass, and silence. I stood there for a few minutes before leaving. Then I heard it. 3 knocks, directly beneath my feet. Knock, knock, knock. I froze, and from somewhere deep underground, a voice whispered, "Daniel." I ran. I never looked back. But sometimes when the clock reaches 2:17 a.m., I wake up to hear 3 soft knocks coming from beneath my bed. And every night, they sound a little closer. They say in the eastern hills of Nepal, if you hear someone whistle your name after midnight, don't answer, because sometimes it is not a human calling you. Sometimes it is her, the woman with backward feet, the one who waits beside the forest trails, the one villagers still fear to mention after dark. In a remote village near the forests of Ilam, people believed the jungle was alive, not with animals, but with things older, things that watched, things that remembered. Among all the stories whispered around firewood stoves during winter, none terrified people more than the tale of Boksi Bamaanche, the witch spirit woman who lured men into the forest. Old villagers claimed she looked beautiful from the front, long black hair, white dress, soft voice. But if you looked at her feet, they faced backward. And if she called your name 3 times, you would never return home. Most people laughed at the legend. until the disappearance of a 22-year-old boy named Suman. Suman had returned from Kathmandu after years of studying. Unlike the villagers, he didn't believe in ghosts. He mocked the old traditions. Backward feet, he laughed one evening. Sounds like drunk people making stories. The elders stayed silent. One old man finally whispered, "Some stories survive because they are true." But Suman ignored them. One night during monsoon season, electricity failed across the village. Rain hammered the rooftops. The mountains disappeared beneath thick fog. Around midnight, Suman left his house to smoke near the old foot trail beside the forest. The village dogs suddenly stopped barking. Everything became silent, too silent. Even the insects vanished. Then, he heard it, a whistle, soft, long, from deep inside the trees. "Suman." He froze. Someone had whispered his name. He looked around, nothing, only fog. Then again, "Suman." This time closer. The voice sounded like a young woman, gentle, almost beautiful. He remembered the village stories and laughed nervously. "Who's there?" No answer. Then he saw her, standing beside a tree, a woman in white, hair covering half her face, perfectly still. Rain fell through her hair as she slowly lifted her head. She smiled. "Suman, come here." He should have run, but something about her voice felt hypnotic, like a dream pulling him forward. Step by step, he walked toward the forest. Closer, closer. Then lightning flashed across the hills. And for 1 second, he saw her feet, backward. Suman stumbled back in horror. The woman's smile vanished instantly. Her neck cracked sideways, her jaw slowly opened wider than humanly possible. Then she screamed, not like a woman, like hundreds of people crying at once. The forest exploded with noise. Branches shook violently. Dogs in the village began barking hysterically. Suman turned and ran, barefoot through mud, slipping down the trail. Behind him he heard footsteps. Fast, impossible fast, but backwards. Thoop, thoop, thoop. And the whistling, always behind him, closer every second. "Suman!" He reached the village bridge and looked back. The woman stood at the edge of the forest, watching him, smiling again. But now her eyes were completely white. Then, she pointed behind him. Suman slowly turned and saw another woman standing on the bridge. Same white dress, same smile, same backward feet. The next morning, villagers found Suman unconscious near the river. His hair had turned partially white overnight. His fingernails were torn bloody as if he had clawed rocks for hours. But the worst part, his voice was gone. Forever. No matter how hard he tried, he never spoke another word again. Years passed. Suman became an old man, silent, terrified of darkness. Every night before sleeping, he locked every window and burned incense beside his bed. Children in the village often asked him what happened in the forest, but he could only shake violently and cry. Until one winter night, during a festival gathering, Suman suddenly stood up, staring toward the forest. Everyone noticed tears rolling down his face. Then for the first time in decades, he spoke only 3 words. "She found me." The villagers turned cold, because from outside the house came a whistle, soft, long, and a woman's voice, calling his name. The next morning, Suman was gone. The door remained locked from inside, but muddy footprints covered the floor. Backward footprints leading toward the forest, and stopping suddenly at the tree line, as if whatever took him never needed to walk anymore. Even today in some villages of Nepal, elders warn young people never to answer whistles at night, especially near forests, especially during fog, because they believe some spirits do not hunt with claws or teeth. They hunt with curiosity. And once you follow the voice, the hills never give you back. If you hear your name whispered outside tonight, make sure the voice belongs to someone human. If you ever wake up at exactly 3:13 a.m. and hear footsteps beneath your bed, do not look down, because according to police records from 1998, that's how the Carter family disappeared. Not one by one, all at once. The father was found hanging upside down in the basement, with every bone in her body twisted backward. The mother was discovered inside the walls, smiling so hard that her jaw had split open. And their 6-year-old son, they never found him. But neighbors still claim, every few years, another family moves into house number 9, and someone always hears the staircase underneath the house, the staircase that should not exist. I never believed ghost stories, not because I was brave, because real life was already horrible enough. My name is Daniel Harper, and 3 years ago, after my divorce, I moved into a small town called Blackridge. Quiet place, too quiet. The kind of town where people stop talking when you walk into a diner. The kind where everyone somehow knows your name before you introduce yourself. And at the center of Blackridge stood house number 9. Cheap rent, huge property, no previous owner listed online. That should have been my first warning. But when you're broke, lonely, and desperate, you stop listening to instinct. The realtor barely spoke during the showing. She kept glancing at the basement door every few seconds, like she expected something behind it. I laughed and asked if the place was haunted. She didn't laugh back. Instead, she said something I still hear in my nightmares. If you hear knocking beneath the floor, ignore it. That was it. Then she handed me the keys. The first night was normal, second night too. But on the third night, I woke up at exactly 3:13 a.m. Not from a sound, from a feeling, like someone was standing beside my bed, watching me. The room felt wrong, too cold. I grabbed my phone. 3:13, and then I heard it knock, under the floor, slow, deliberate. Knock, 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 directly beneath my bed. Every hair on my body stood up. I froze, the knocking stopped. Then, something whispered beneath me. Not words, breathing, wet breathing. I jumped out of bed and turned on every light in the room. Nothing. No footprints, no sound. But near the closet, there was dirt on the floor. Fresh dirt, as if someone had crawled into the room. The next morning, I searched the house. Every room, every wall, nothing unusual, until I reached the basement. The basement door was old wood covered in scratches. Not normal scratches, long, deep, like fingernails, and near the bottom, tiny marks, child-sized. I opened the door. The smell hit first. Rot, wet earth, something metallic underneath. The basement was massive, far bigger than it should have been. My flashlight barely reached the back wall, and that's when I saw it. A staircase, leading down, another level beneath the basement. Impossible, the house blueprints online never mentioned it. The stairs disappeared into complete darkness. And from below came a sound, a child humming, soft, broken. I should have left. Instead, I walked down, step, step, step. The air got colder with every stair. The humming stopped. Then I heard tiny footsteps running beneath me, fast, circling, like a child running around in the dark. My flashlight flickered, and for 1 second, I saw someone standing at the bottom. A little boy, pale skin, no eyes, just empty black holes leaking something thick down his cheeks. Then the light faded. I ran back upstairs so fast I nearly broke my ankle. But before I slammed the basement door shut, I heard the child speak. "He knows you're here now." That night, the footsteps started, not downstairs, inside the walls, running, scratching, breathing, and at exactly 3:13 a.m., someone knocked on my bedroom door. 3 times, slow. I grabbed a kitchen knife, my hands shaking violently. "Who's there?" Silence, then my ex-wife's voice answered. "Daniel, let me in." My blood froze. Emily was 600 miles away. Again, "Daniel, please." Then her voice changed, deeper, wet, wrong. "He's coming up." The door handle began to turn slowly. I backed away. The hallway outside suddenly filled with footsteps. Dozens of them. Children, running, laughing, crying, screaming, all at once, and then the walls started knocking back. I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I went to the local library searching for information about the house. The librarian went pale when I mentioned House 9. She told me the property had been abandoned for nearly 40 years. Multiple disappearances, No survivors, one family in particular, the Carters. That same family from the urban legends. But there was one detail nobody online mentioned. Before they vanished, the father reported hearing a staircase beneath the basement. Police searched, found nothing. Then 3 days later, the entire family disappeared. Except for the son, Eli Carter, age 6, missing, never found. The librarian handed me an old cassette tape. Police evidence, recovered from the house in 1998. I found an old tape player and listened that night. The recording began with static. Then a man's terrified voice. "Mr. Carter, if anyone finds this, don't go downstairs. There's something under the house." In the background, children crying, scratching. Then his wife screaming. Not a normal scream, a scream like someone being pulled apart. Mr. Carter started sobbing. "It wears their faces. Oh God, it keeps copying them." Then came a child's voice, tiny, soft. "Daddy, there's a man under my bed." Heavy footsteps, then silence. For nearly 20 seconds. And suddenly, a monstrous sound exploded through the tape. Not human, not animal, like thousands of voices screaming together. The tape ended with one sentence, spoken by something pretending to be Mr. Carter. We opened the door. That night, I decided to leave. I packed everything into my truck. Didn't care about money anymore. I just wanted out. But when I tried to start the engine, the truck wouldn't move. The tires were flat, all four slashed, and written across the windshield in mud were 3 words: "Stay below with us." That's when I heard laughing from inside the house. Children laughing, dozens of them. I looked up at the second floor window and saw them, standing shoulder to shoulder, pale children, black eyes, smiling unnaturally wide. And in the center stood the eyeless boy from the basement, Eli Carter. He pointed downward, toward the basement. Then every child opened their mouths at once and screamed. The power died immediately. Total darkness. Then came the knocking. Not beneath the floor this time. Inside the house, every wall, every door, every window. Bang, 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 like something trying to get in or out. I locked myself in the bathroom holding a knife like it would matter. Then I heard crawling. Above me, across the ceiling. Slow, wet. I looked up and the ceiling bulged downward. Something was moving inside it. Then a crack formed. Black liquid dripped onto the sink. The bulge stretched lower, lower, until a human hand burst through the plaster, backward, bones bent the wrong way. Then another hand, then a face pushed halfway through the ceiling, skin stretched tight, eyes completely black. Its mouth opened far too wide, and it whispered in Emily's voice, "Why did you leave me?" I ran. The thing crashed from the ceiling behind me, limbs snapping like spider legs. Chasing me through the hallway, I slipped down the basement stairs and slammed the door behind me. The thing outside began smashing against it violently. I had nowhere else to go, except down, into the staircase beneath the basement. This time, the stairs were longer, far longer, like the house itself was changing. The deeper I went, the louder the whispers became. Hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, begging, crying, praying, and then I reached the bottom. A massive underground chamber stretched beneath the town. Not built, carved. The walls pulsed like flesh. And in the center was a hole, a gigantic black pit descending forever. Round it stood people, or what used to be people, dozens of them, motionless, facing the pit, including the missing families, their skin pale gray, eyes hollow, smiling. And beside them stood Eli Carter, still 6 years old, unchanged after decades. He looked at me and spoke calmly. "It lives below. It learns your face first, then your voice, then your memories. And when it knows you completely, you become part of the house." Behind him, something moved inside the pit, huge, breathing. The darkness itself shifted, and then it climbed upward. Not fully, just enough for me to see pieces. Thousands of arms fused together, human mouths opening and closing across its body, faces growing from flesh like tumors. Every missing person, still alive, still screaming, buried inside it. The creature spoke with all their voices combined. Don't leave us alone. I don't remember escaping. I only remember waking up in a hospital 2 days later. Police found me wandering the highway barefoot, covered in dirt, screaming about the staircase. They searched House 9, found nothing. No underground chamber, no staircase, no bodies. The house was empty. They diagnosed me with psychosis, trauma-induced hallucinations. Case closed. But they were wrong, because 3 months later, I woke up again at exactly 3:13 a.m. in my apartment, miles away from Blackridge. And beneath my bed, I heard knocking, slow, patient, waiting. Then came Eli's voice from underneath me, soft, whispering, "You brought it with you." My bed began to shake violently. In the western hills of Nepal, there is a belief older than memory itself. If a person returns from the forest, but their shadow does not follow them, they are no longer human. They are something that was sent back. In a remote, forgotten village near Darchula district, surrounded by cliffs and deep pine valleys, villagers lived in silence more than speech. They believed shadows were not just reflections of the body, but proof that the soul still belonged to the world. And losing one meant something else had taken ownership. A young man named Kiran returned home after working across the border in construction near India-Nepal border region. He came back changed, quieter, thinner, and strangely, he never walked in sunlight. At first, villagers didn't notice, but children did. One boy whispered, "Uncle Kiran, why are you floating?" People laughed until someone looked closely. Kiran walked normally, but there was no shadow under his feet. Even at noon, even under harsh sunlight, nothing. The village shaman, an old woman known as Bhairavi Amma, was called immediately. She burned juniper leaves and circled Kiran. The smoke bent away from him, like it refused to touch him. She stepped back and said only one thing: "You did not return alone." Kiran remembers the night everything changed, working late near a collapsed road inside dense forest. No phone signal, no light except machine lamps. Then the fog came early, too early, and inside that fog, he saw another worker, standing too still, watching him. But when Kiran blinked, the worker was closer and closer, until there was no distance left at all. Something touched his shadow, not his body, just the darkness behind him, and it peeled away like wet cloth. Kiran screamed, but no sound came out of the forest. Only silence answered him back. Back in the village, strange events begin. Dogs refuse to bark near Kiran. Fire refuses to stay lit near him. Water in cups trembles when he walks past. And worst of all, his reflection in metal objects arrives half a second late. One night, Kiran stands near a water stream. Moonlight reflects off the surface. Villagers watching from distance freeze, because Kiran's reflection is wrong. It stands, but smiles differently. Then, the reflection lifts its head first, before Kiran moves. From the forest edge, something begins to speak through wind. "You left something behind." Kiran holds his head. Pain floods him, not physical, existential. Like something inside him is trying to remember how to exist alone. Kiran starts losing consistency. Some days he appears slightly delayed. Some days his voice echoes after he speaks. And sometimes he is seen standing in two places at once, but only one of him casts no shadow. Bhairavi Amma performs a forbidden ritual. She draws salt circles, burns bone ash, and chants words no one else understands. She says, the shadow is not lost, it is replaced. Kiran collapses, and for the first time, his shadow appears. But it is not his, it is taller, wrong-shaped, and facing the opposite direction. The shadow speaks directly. "I walked out first. You were just the body I left behind." The villagers realized the truth. Kiran did not lose his shadow. Something in the forest used him to escape. And now, it is learning how to live through him. That night, Kiran stands alone at the edge of the village. Moonlight above, forest behind, villagers watching from distance. Then, his shadow detaches completely, steps forward, and for the first time, it walks without him. The next morning, Kiran is found sitting peacefully near the river, alive, smiling, but he does not respond when spoken to, and his shadow now moves independently beside him, sometimes leaving early, sometimes returning late, and sometimes it stands somewhere else entirely, watching the village, planning nothing, waiting for everything. In the far west of Nepal, they still warn, never trust a man whose shadow learns to walk before him.